everyone, I'm Glenda with SureFit Designs, and I know lots of you already know me as Glenda the Good Stitch. I'd like to welcome all of you. I've been looking at the people who are joining us from all over the world, and I'm so pleased to have all of you with us today. You know, if you've participated in any of our live chats this year, 2021 is what we're calling an inspirational year, and our goal is to inspire you to sew more and to sew more with clothing that fit with SureFit Designs. So today we're going to be focusing on sleeves, and I called it sleeves in all their quirkiness. You know, sleeves have convex curves, concave curves, you've got straight lines, you've got curves that are all over your body. I think sleeves come in at a real close second to difficulty in fitting. And when I say a real close second, that's to the crotch curve, because crotch curves, you know, curves this way. And again, we're taking a flat piece of fabric and we're trying to conform it to all of our body curves. Well, your shoulders, your bicep, your underarm, all of that constitute as creating challenges for a flat piece of fabric to conform nicely. So today I hope to give you some basic information about why we do what we do. I know a lot of you are already asking some excellent questions about sleeve fit. I hope to cover some of them in this presentation today, but you know, quite honestly, I could likely talk about sleeves for 2 or 3 hours, and I'm going to try and confine today's information to about 40 to 45 minutes. And those of you who have participated in my chats and broadcasts before know that I have a tendency to go over time. So I hope I don't go too much over today, but I definitely do want to address some of your very specific questions. And I would say this, that if your question doesn't get addressed specifically, please make sure that you email your distributor and ask that question, because whatever it is, it's important to you. And in order to help you, we ask that you send photographs of front, back, and side views. I know some of the chat comments I've been reading as we've been waiting for our start time, I thought, gosh, I'd sure like to see a photo of what she's talking about. So again, I encourage you, photographs please, and send your questions to your distributor, but I will definitely try and cover a lot of your questions today. Now, in order to continue in our vein of inspiration for you, we are trying to offer at least one live chat per month. And in the previous chats, I invited you to send in your questions of chat topics, and I will send that invitation again to you. I have a short list started, and it's really great, you know, when I see 1 or 2 questions coming in on virtually the same topic, then I already know that there's a lot more people out there that would like information on that. So you're going to send your request directly to me. My email address is info@surefitdesigns.com. All right, info@surefitdesigns.com. And then in today's questions that are coming up in our chat window here, please put a big capital letter Q at the front of your question, so that when I actually scroll through the chat comments, that capital letter Q is going to help me find your question easier than just a general comment. And I would also like to ask that you focus your questions on the topic today, being sleeves and armholes and fit of this area up here. I know there's a lot more involved, like our necks and our shoulder lines and our bust, but we are going to try to narrow this down and stay on topic today, which is going to be on sleeves. Now, I have a question for you, and I'm going to ask it, and then I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer the question. I want you to put your answers in the chat window, and then we'll come back and talk about your answer. So here's my question for you. What is the purpose of a dart? Why do we put darts in fabric, and what's their functionality. Why do we need them in our clothing? So that's all one question with just some different parts to it. Think about it. Why do we need darts in our clothing? And I'll come back and answer that. All right, another thing that I like to do in our live chats is I like to talk about what's new. And this month we have 2 new fashion leaflets. The first one is a funnel neck top. We're actually going to show you this graphic in the video there. It's a funnel neck top. It's got a zip front that is an invisible zipper. It's got princess lines that are going up into the funnel neck area. Oftentimes you're used to princess lines going into your shoulder or into your armhole. This time the fashion design sheet goes in, the princess line goes into the neckline. And it's also got a 2-part sleeve in it. I'll be showing you a 2-part sleeve today in case you're not familiar with them. But just realize that in this garment, you don't have to put in a 2-part sleeve. It could just be a standard one. So that's one of our new fashion leaflets. The second new fashion leaflet is called the flared skirt with an asymmetrical button opening on the left-hand side, and then it's got a pretty little pocket detail on the right-hand side. And both of these fashion leaflets are designed with your dress kit body blueprint, and they were designed by one of our customers. Her name is Deanne Artis. So all credit goes to Deanne for sewing the garment, putting the instructions together, and she is actually working with me to produce a few more fashion leaflets for you this year. So you're going to see some more coming out. Where you're going to find these fashion leaflets is in our tab that's called Digital Sewing Patterns. All of the distributors in all of our international countries all carry these fashion leaflets. So please go directly to their site and just scroll over to their shop tab and then go down to Digital Sewing Patterns and you'll be able to access these. Again, all credit goes to Deanne Artis. And if you're wondering where you might have heard that name before, well, Deanne is the lady who designed your Sew and Tell planner. And again, for those of you who might be new to SureFit Designs, this might be your first chat, what is Sew and Tell? Well, it's a little program that we started up where you sew your garments from SureFit Designs and then tell about it in our Facebook group. And so we want you to obviously sew garments with SureFit Designs, and what Deanne's planner does is give you 12 months of planning opportunities so that you can get yourself mentally organized for what you're going to sew this year. And then there's a place for fabric and writing the description. We give you Sally Silhouette, which is our naked croquis to draw your design on. It's kind of fun, so if you haven't participated before, I would encourage you to do so. And that planner was designed by Deanne Artis. She's a very talented lady, and I'm grateful to have her as a customer. Now, what we're then trying to do, approximately once a month, is draw a random winner for those of you who participated in the Sew and Tell challenge. I'm calling it a challenge, but there's really no contest. We're not judging you on the design of your garment. We're not judging you on your sewing construction process because obviously I can't see how you sewed it together anyway. What we're doing is rewarding you for your participation. So once you've sewn a garment with SureFit Designs, if you're not a member of our SureFit Designs Facebook group, please consider joining. Put your photographs up in the group and make sure that you put on the hashtags Sew and Tell and Me Made, or one or the other. And the reason is that then we can search those hashtags and see who is participating, and then we just pick a random winner and give you a gift. And so the random winner this month is Vera Minifee. I do hope Vera is watching, and Kelly, my office assistant, has posted a notice to Vera in our Facebook group. And what you're going to do, Vera, is email me at info@SureFitDesigns your free gift this month is to choose one of our new fashion leaflets. So let me know which one you'd like to have, and it's your reward for participating. Okay, and let's see, what else now? Okay, so your question. You asked the question, or you asked the question, I asked the question, what do darts do? And let's see what we've got here for answers. Darts can be used for style, and they can be used to fit our mounds. I like that description. That's, that's absolutely great. Let's see. Fashion leaflets are available from your international distributors. Okay, this is another great answer. For darts, we need a dart for creating 3D for fit. Absolutely. That's an absolutely excellent answer. Here's another answer. To cover a curve smoothly. And another answer for good shape and perfect fit. So all of those are absolutely correct answers. Thank you so much for putting your answer in the chat window. So we have lumps and bumps on our body, being our bust, our waistline, our hip curve, and we also have an elbow bump. And that bump gets fitted with an elbow dart, which I am going to be talking about today. Now, before I jump into the lesson, I would just like to mention to you that approximately once a month, we have a special promotion that we offer you. Our promotions change monthly from one month to the next. We never run the same promotion twice in 1 year. And this month's promotion is free shipping. And it's free shipping in some countries, it's reduced shipping in other countries. So you just need to check with your international distributor to see what that particular distributor is offering. But here in the United States, what I am doing is saying if you purchase anywhere from $49.95 and up on any group of products together, or perhaps it's a dress kit, then enter the free shipping code, which is free shipping 21. So put your items in the cart and put in that code. Now, as you can well appreciate, we are not Costco and we're not Amazon. And unfortunately, we can't offer shipping, free shipping on a regular basis. So once a year, we pick a time and we say, okay, this is what we can do for you. And so for today and tomorrow through midnight, as long as you enter in the United States that code free shipping 21, you will receive your order for no shipping costs at all. In some of our other countries where we have distributors, there's reduced shipping and no code is required. For other countries, there's a higher minimum than mine, and then you've got to put the code in. And so that's why it's all just a little bit, everybody got to choose what they wanted to do in their particular country. So please go to your distributor's website and see what their promotion is for this particular weekend. And I will repeat the promotion again at the end because I know not everybody has joined us yet. But at any rate, take advantage of it while we're doing it because it only happens once a year. All right, now the lesson. One of the things that I asked you to do was to read an article, if you had time, called Sleeves and All Their Quirkiness. Now, this article is a really, really valuable article. It's found in our Sure-Fit Designs Learning Center, and if you look at the Show More notes that are right underneath where this video is playing, you're going to be able to see a link to this article. I'm going to go over some of the specific factors that are included in this article. It's all about sleeves and why they are a little bit of a challenge. So again, we're going to address some of those issues today. And I'm going to come back to this in just a second. What I'd like to do right now is talk about the three major categories of sleeves. And we're putting up a graphic that's showing you this. One is a straight sleeve. And a straight sleeve is what I'm defining as a sleeve without an elbow dart. So taking a look at this sleeve right here, it says sleeve for stretchy fabric, knit fabric. You won't see an elbow dart there. The sleeve that I'm wearing does not have an elbow dart. The second sleeve in that category distinction is this sleeve for woven fabric. A sleeve for woven fabric has a higher sleeve cap, it has more ease in it, and it has this elbow dart. And I can't tell you how many times all of us as distributors, we get the question, how do I remove the elbow dart? And so the first thing I'm going to say to you is, why would you want to do that? And I will discuss that whole issue. And then today I'm going to show you how to remove it. Now, the third sleeve in our major category of sleeves is a two-part sleeve. And that's where you get a seam at the back and at the front of your sleeve. And why would you do that? Well, it's to shape the sleeve better to the bend in your arm so that it fits you better, okay? So those are the three major categories of sleeves. Now, what I'd like you to think about is why we put this dart in here. How are our arms hanging on our bodies that actually require this fitting dart? So let's take a look at the sleeve that I'm currently wearing. Now, normally when we stand, our hand flops to the front of our body. We actually never ever stand with our hands straight down at the side of our body like this. So this is very unnatural to hold your hands straight up and down your side seam here. If I did, then you could take this flat piece of fabric and you could hang it over that arm and you wouldn't have any wrinkles on it or fold lines on it. But that's not the way our arms hang on our bodies. If I just shake my body out a little bit and just take a breath and let my hands fall down where they want to go on the front of my body, you can see that it's hitting the right-hand side of the top of my thigh right here. So when your arm goes from straight up and down to like this is called the pitch of your arm. And that pitch happens from your elbow. And that's why when we bend our arm, we need an elbow dart, okay? So now once again, when my arm is straight up and down my body, my sleeve fits beautifully, no wrinkles. The minute I go like this, keep in mind this is not a darted sleeve now, look what happened. I got a diagonal fold coming up to the shoulder bone. So by putting in a dart here, right here, it helps to increase the pitch of the sleeve to help us remove that diagonal fold in the sleeve. And of course, that elbow dart needs to be in the correct location as well. If it's too high or too low, that also can contribute to that diagonal fold. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit more about the factors that are going to affect the fit in your whole sleeve. This elbow dart, of course, is one very, very important factor. On the article that I asked you to read, the very first thing that I talk about is factors affecting fit. So don't try and go and read the article now. If you happen to print it out, great. But if not, I should just mention this. There will be a replay of the video. You just need to come back into my YouTube channel. And maybe at that point you could have read the article so that as I go over this, it'll all make a lot more sense for you. Just use exactly the same link that you did to get into the broadcast or the chat today. Okay, one of the very first factors affecting the fit of the sleeve is the cap height. So that's from the top of the cap to the underarm. We can draw a line coming right across from underarm point to underarm point, and of course that's the width of the sleeve. From there to the top of the cap is called cap height, or DOC, which is depth of cap. Now, some of us have more fleshiness on the top of our arm and fullness up here. We'll need a little bit higher cap in order to eliminate the drag lines that might happen from the top of the cap. Another factor affecting the cap fit is the width of the cap, and that's measured from approximately right here straight across. So that's the width of your cap. So that's going from this seam around to this seam. The flusher you are back here, the more cap width you are going to need. You typically reach forward, but not backward, so we need that fullness at the back. Of course, the shape of this bell cap is going to make a difference as well. We give you a cap that we hope is going to be as good as possible, let's put it that way, for all of your bodies. But I know in reality that we could all have the same measurement and our bodies would look different because of the amount of flesh or padding or shape. I'm getting shoulder bones that are rocking forward. I just realized that on one of the projects that I just did, and I'm going to have to move my shoulder seam forward, which means I'm going to have to move my cap notch forward. And it's coming from computer work and over the sewing machine and that kind of thing. So our bodies change as we age, and the nice thing about this is you can modify this as you need to. Okay, so another factor affecting the fit of this cap is the ease for sewing this sleeve in. So one of the things that I describe in this article is that you want to measure from your underarm point up to the sleeve cap notch and have a certain amount of front cap ease, and also from the sleeve cap notch to the underarm for back cap ease. In the front, for like if we're just using a polyester cotton for our test garment, you want approximately 3/8 to a maximum of 1/2 inch of ease in the front of the cap. In the back, you want about 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch maximum in the back of the cap. Now, I can set that amount of ease in. Some of you might be challenged with that amount of ease, depending on your skill level in setting in a sleeve. So one of the videos that I have in the Show More notes is how to set a sleeve in. Now, it's a way that I've been using for 50 years to set in a woven sleeve. I know it works, but I'm also very, very comfortable with the process and technique. It's only one way to set in a sleeve, but when you get used to it, as with anything, then it becomes a natural and comfortable way for you to set in a sleeve. So if you're having difficulty sewing it in to get a nice smooth sleeve cap, please watch that video on setting in a sleeve. Now, another thing that could be happening is that for the fabric you're using, you might have too much ease in the top of the sleeve cap, so you might need to reduce some of that ease. And of course, when you're working with a knit or a stretch fabric, I've pointed this sleeve out before. This sleeve has reduced sleeve cap ease, and it's because that the sleeve is simply going to stretch into the armhole a lot easier. So your fabric choice makes a huge, huge difference as to how much ease you're going to have and how nicely it's going to turn out. But if you do need to reduce the amount of ease, then on page 2 in this article, you're going to see some illustrations at the bottom. And one way to reduce the sleeve cap ease is to modify the height of the cap. You can decrease, you can increase the cap height. Same thing on the width of the cap. You can increase it, you can decrease it on the side curves of the cap. And the other thing is the width of the bicep. I do appreciate that many of you have a large upper arm issue. And there is another video, again, in the Show More notes on how to adapt the pattern for a large upper arm. Now, let me just give you a quick example on the large upper arm. Let's just say as the sleeve is drawn by your full bust measurement. So I'm going to use an example of a 40-inch bust. So if I was to measure from the 40 dot right there to the 40 dot right here, that total distance is 14 inches. So you have to say, how big around is my bicep? And then you need ease to get that fabric around your bicep. So the minimum amount of ease when you're wearing a knit, unless you want it skin tight, of course, depending on the style of the garment, is about 1.5 inches. But when you're wearing a woven sleeve garment, then you want to have at least 2 inches of ease in that cap area. And so if you need to, you can widen out the underarm on each side, and the more you widen it out is going to affect the cap. I didn't mean the cap, I'm sorry. It's going to affect the bodice, and the bodice needs to get wider. So this information is all covered for you in the dress kit instruction book, and it's also covered in that video on widening out the sleeve pattern. Now, if you are having difficulty removing some of the sleeve cap ease, I have a little cheater's way to remove some of that sleeve cap ease. And so at the end of this live chat, if you can stay around for about 10 minutes more, we're going to show you a video on how I'm going to give you a quick little way to reduce sleeve cap ease when drawing. It just doesn't seem to work quite as well as you'd like to. So I hope you can stay and watch it. And if you can't, then please just watch the video afterward, because again, the link is there for you. So now we're going to come back to this elbow dart and how it affects the fit. So I've shown you a sleeve now with a knit sleeve in it. And I should mention to you that this is the waterfall jacket, and that plus my gathered neckline top, my sleeveless top, are also fashion design sheets, and they are found in our digital sewing patterns category, the same as where our new leaflets are found. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at 3 different jackets and why I chose the kind of sleeve that I did. So the first jacket is this pink plaid one. And when I was designing this jacket, and it's a woven fabric, right? So I needed to decide, how was I going to deal with this plaid in relationship to the plaid on the jacket? So now I'm going to turn it so we can see the seam. I did such a good job of matching the plaids that I have a hard time finding the seam. Here it is. Okay, so here was my choice. It's a woven fabric, and there's my seam going down the underarm. Now, if I would have put this elbow dart in place, then my plaids from there down, they wouldn't have matched. And in addition to that, the angle that's on the sleeve right here would have meant that I couldn't use a plaid for the hemline. So I really thought about it a lot, and I thought, do I want the dart there for good shaping, or do I want my plaids to match and then have the hemline be on an exact plaid? And guess what won out? The plaid won out. So I don't have an elbow dart in here, even though it is a woven fabric. So now let's take a look at it on me. And here we go. Okay, again, unnatural, arms straight down at the body. You can see how nicely that sleeve hangs. But natural, the minute I did that, I started to get this diagonal fold coming up to the shoulder line. That was a choice that I made because I wanted my plaids to match, and I wanted the hemline to be on an exact plaid all the way around. You can also see the width of the sleeve, because now that I don't have an elbow dart, I needed to add some more bending room in this sleeve. And that was the choice I made. Let's go on and take another look at another jacket here. That's a shawl collar jacket, actually. This is our lapel jacket on this pink plaid one. And here's the shawl collar. And, whoops, before I put it on, let's look at the sleeve. Okay, solid color fabric. I definitely put the elbow dart in place. All right, now let's take a look at how this one is fitting. And I should mention to you that the shawl collar is found in your dress kit instruction book. Again, for those of you who are new to SureFit Designs, what these sleeve patterns and the bodice pattern and the book that I'm showing you all come out of what we call the SureFit Designs dress kit. And there's a 56-page instruction book, and this shawl collar designing is on page 46. And I've also taken the bust fitting dart from right here, and I've put it up into the shoulder line. So you're going to get full directions for doing that on page 46. Now, let's take a look at the sleeve. My arm is hanging comfortably towards the front of my body, and that sleeve is hanging beautifully. Why? Because it's got an elbow dart. Okay? Now, on some people's bodies, this elbow dart may not be enough, meaning that just depending on how your arms hang, if they hang more further forward, then you might need to increase the pitch of this dart. And so on this, again, 3-page leaflet right here, on the very, I think it's the last page, that if you want to increase the pitch of the dart, there is another article found in the SureFit Designs Learning Center on how to do that. So now let's take a look at the 2-piece sleeve. And this jacket I did out of a novelty denim. And here you can see that there is the seam on the back of the sleeve, right here. And then here's the seam on the front of the sleeve, right here, okay? And, excuse me, to design a 2-piece sleeve, the directions are in, on page 36, I think it is, in the dress kit instruction book. And what it does is takes this dart, folds it out, angles this even more, and really increases the pitch of the sleeve so that, again, we have a really excellent fit for our elbow. So as my arm is hanging just comfortably, again, you're seeing a really, really excellent fit. Normally, we only use this 2-piece sleeve in jackets or coats. Deanne put the 2-piece sleeve in the funnel neck top. Again, it's your choice to do that or not in that top. You might be wondering about the design of this jacket. This is actually a princess line. Normally we have princess lines going from the hemline up to the shoulder or into the armhole. This actually is at the shoulder line. It goes over the apex and then goes to center front. And I specifically designed this jacket so that it does not overlap. You could put like a little closure here, a little frog or something like that to hold it shut if you wanted to, but that's the design of it. This jacket also is in our digital sewing patterns, and you'll find that again in all of the distributors' website. So that's an example of the 2-piece sleeve. So now you say, yes, but Glenda, I really, really, really want to remove that dart. So now I'm going to show you how to remove the dart. And as I'm doing this, you'll see the process, but I have to ask you to really think about why you want to remove the dart if you're going to do that, because you can see how functional that elbow dart is. Normally I'd be doing this in tracing vellum, but it was just as easy since I'm standing up here to do this demonstration on the wall And so that the pattern underneath didn't really show through too much, I just drew this off on a solid piece of white paper here so that you can see the sleeve designs really well. And now, excuse me, let me stick a pin right here to keep that from blowing up on me. Okay, so you can see that I've got it all drawn, and there is the elbow dart where it should be. You're going to see red lines going right up to the straight of grain. So the elbow dart, we're going to identify that as the dressmaker's dart, the one you would sew out, and the red line we'll describe as the designer's dart because I'm going to cut on those lines and I'm going to remove it. You'll also notice that I've drawn straight down through the hemline because I'm going to need to cut up there. So because I'm going to cut up, I'm going to just put a little piece of my tape over top of that point right here because it's going to become a pivot point. Let me see, I think I'll cut these lines first. So I'm just going in and I'm going to cut up on those red lines to my pivot point. Oh, I'm going crooked there. Okay, so that removes the elbow dart. And you know what? I'm going to put a pin right here. Okay, so now, and I'm going to put another pin over here to hold that side down. Okay, so now, pardon my back. I'll move out of the way in a minute. I think our other camera is getting me cutting this. I'm cutting on the straight of grain, and I'm cutting right up to my pivot point and trying not to cut through it. Okay, so from here, all that I'm going to do is pivot that elbow dart closed like this. And there you have removed your elbow dart. Okay, now I've got an opening right here, and I had a piece of tracing vellum right here. I don't know what I did with it. I honestly don't know what I did with it, but let's just use this. I'll put this underneath. So we're going to just slide another piece of paper up like that. You would tape it all down really well, and now you've got your absolutely straight sleeve. Then for that pink jacket that I showed you, I also straightened the side seam to come down. And please make sure that once you've done this, moving the dart out of the way, that you double check that your underarm seams are exactly the same length. But at this point, you can widen it out like I did for my pink jacket because again, I knew that I was going to need some elbow bending room in there. But that's how you remove the dart in the sleeve pattern, if you want to, and if there's a really good reason to remove it. Now, I'd like to take a look at this blouse that I've got on the mannequin here. This is a piece of fabric that I really, really love the colors. I love the pattern. I just thought it was great. I never stopped to think about the fiber content and what I was going to do with this blouse. And so it is like 100% woven fabric. There is no stretch to it at all. It's got a really shiny inside. It's almost like it was a drapery fabric, bordering on drapery fabric, but I really loved it. So I turned it into this blouse. And when I was doing the sleeve, I said to myself, well, what design do I want? So first of all, I put this pretty little upside down V. It's a 3/4 length sleeve, and I did this upside down V. And you'll see the instructions for doing this V in our Learning Center. There's a free article, and I don't remember actually, I think I just called it an upside down V notch or something like that, but go to the Learning Center, you'll find it. Now, I'll ask you the question, did I put an elbow dart in here or didn't I? Because I've got this notch. That notch is going to open up and give me a little bit of room. Well, I'll tell you what, I put the elbow dart in, and I'm sure glad I did because there was no movement room at all in this fabric. And I know this is hard to see because of the pattern, but that's also a good point, is when your pattern or when your fabric is highly patterned like this, you're rarely going to see your dart structure. So there's my dart right there. And plus I had my little V opening. And we went to an outside reception. It was about 100 degrees that day. And after a half an hour of being in this blouse, I felt like I was inside of a plastic bag and could not wait to get back home and get it off. So unfortunately, I don't wear it a lot because it just doesn't breathe at all. But it sure was a pretty piece of fabric. Okay, so that covers some of the basic information that I wanted to go over about sleeves and how they can be really challenging. I know because of our curvatures, concave, convex, underarm curves, and we're wanting to take a flat piece of fabric and make it fit over all of those curves. And we do our best with seams, with curves, and with elbow darts. Okay, so I am going to start answering your questions here in a moment, but for those of you who came in late today, I'd like to just reinforce that once a month we have a promotion, and this month we are doing free shipping in the United States. And our minimum in order to get free shipping is $49.95. So you can group pencils or line draft or whatever together in order to just get over $49.95. And then when you go to checkout, put in free shipping 21. I believe Anna up in Canada is also using the free shipping 21 code. Her minimum is different. Australia has a different minimum, but no shipping code. And the UK has reduced shipping, but no shipping code. And Elsabe, I can't remember if she's using a shipping code or not. I think she is. So I do encourage you to go to all of your distributors' websites and look to see if they have a minimum and look to see whether you need a code at checkout or not. But take advantage of our promotion because once a year is the only time we do this, and the promotion is going to end at midnight tomorrow night. So get your orders in, and then we'll be filling orders on Monday. Okay, so now give me a couple of seconds to look through the questions. Remember, put a Q at the front of your question so that I can see. Okay, here's a good question from Valerie. Can I use the woven sleeve pattern for a long sleeve knit top to avoid the diagonal folds? Absolutely, you can do that. However, just keep in mind that the knit sleeve pattern for the stretchy fabric has been sized down a little bit. So for the best rule of thumb I could give you is to go down at least one dot on the woven sleeve pattern, and then make sure that you use your tape measure to walk around your armhole and walk the cap as well, and check out how much ease that's got. But I don't think I've got anything hanging on the rack right here where I've put the elbow dart in on a knit fabric, but I know I've done it before, and it sure helps a lot. I even, on some of my knit garments, I'll put the dart on the back of my shoulder line in a knit because I know it's going to give better shaping back there. Don't be afraid to use your darts. That's the intention of them, is to help us fit our bodies. But yeah, absolutely, give that a try. Let's see here. Okay, let's see what I've got here. Okay, this is coming from Anna Raspberry. When you remove the sleeve dart and need to straighten the seam, is this just the side of the sleeve pattern with the dart, or do you need to add some to the other side as well? Absolutely excellent question, Anna. What I would recommend doing is once you have removed the dart, and then fold your sleeve in half and make sure that the side seams are not only the same length, but they're the same shape, that they're going in the same direction. So yes, change it if you need to. Just remember your finishing, that they need to be the same length, but the angle should also be the same once you've got that dart removed. Just a minute here, it's jumping on me. Valerie Evans asked, does the elbow dart go right to the point of the elbow, or is it backed off a little bit like the bust dart? Because our elbows aren't as full as our bust lines, typically that elbow dart is going to get pretty close to the tip of your elbow bone. So yeah, this isn't one where we back it off. And if you do, it would be a very, very minimal amount. Good question, Valerie. Barbara DeJong, does this apply to the men's shirts as well? I'm not exactly sure the full intent of your question, because a man's shirt does not have an elbow dart in it. And when you come to think about it, it's a straight sleeve, so do they get folds in their shirts? Absolutely, yes. Do we typically put a dart in for a man's shirt? No, we don't, but I guess you could try it if you wanted to. Okay, from Christine Champlain. A large bicep adjustment, I need 5.5 inches at the bicep adjustment. Okay, so let me stand back up and address that. Anybody who has to add more than about 1 inch or 2, you could likely get 2 inches on this. And again, my other video talks about that. But when you start needing to add, 3, 4, 5 inches totally for this sleeve circumference, then you might need to think of another alternative way to do it. Because I'll just take 5 inches as an example. If you divide 5 in half, that's 2.5. That would mean 2.5 extra inches that would have to be added at either side of the cap, which means 2.5 extra inches on your bodice, which results in a much too large of a bodice for you. You always think of action and consequence, and that would be a consequence of putting all of that width on the bodice. So what I recommend is this, is to take the amount that you need and start dividing it up. And some of it we can put as a curved seam at the underarm. I know that sounds a little bit strange to have a curved underarm seam, but you can do it. And in the Learning Center, there is an article, and I don't remember what I named the article in the Learning Center, but I think it's called something like Alternative Way to Add Fullness for a Large Upper Arm. But I also have a third video, another video, and this one is called Large Upper Arm Alteration Choices and Style Options, and that's found in the video library. And it actually is D for dress. I'm going to give you the number of this. It's D.9.5.B. Okay, D.9.5.B. And I think I gave that link in the Show More notes, all right? And you'll want to go and watch that, because what I talk about in that video are ways to create different styles of sleeve that are going to be flattering on your larger upper arm and not just a standard straight set-in sleeve. But besides widening and curving the underarm, you can take some of your required extra width and split the sleeve right down the center, and then on this center seam, adds some curvature. And I do have a jacket here where I've done a center seam. Again, you might think a center seam sounds kind of not usual in a sleeve pattern, but why not? I mean, you have to realize that seams and darts are used to help shape our bodies. And if you've got a large upper arm, use the center seam, and then on that seam, curve on either side of it. And when you're sewing it out of a plain fabric like this, and then you put some kind of a decorative treatment at the hemline, like I did here, and left a little V open, no one would ever know that you've widened it out up here and put a curved underarm seam. So again, you've got choices, and I really do encourage you to watch that other video on the alternative sleeve styles. Excellent questions, by the way, everybody. Let me continue on. Sorry for my hesitation here. I just need to read what I'm trying to answer. Sandra Brown asked, if I make adjustments on the sleeve pattern, do I have to make the same adjustments on the back and front of the pattern, on the bodice sections? And yes, you do. And a part depends on what it is you're changing. If you're just changing the shape of the cap, flattening or broadening out the curve, but not changing that sleeve cap notch or the front notch in the front and the double notch in the back, then you don't need to change anything on the bodice. But if, in my case, where I've got my shoulder bone rocking forward, I needed to move my shoulder seam forward, then you need to move your sleeve cap notch forward as well. And if you go to the Learning Center, then again, there's an article on moving that sleeve cap notch forward. And I may have covered it in a video. I have so many videos out on YouTube. Honestly, I don't remember all of the ones that I've got. This is a question from Katie B. This may be too much for today, but I have a square shoulder, but also forward shoulders. I have to add 1 inch to the back dress bodice at the shoulder point, but the front bodice is fine. What about the sleeve? The sleeve is going to need to be, just a minute, square shouldered. Okay, so you want to do the square shoulder tune-up first of all on your bodice, which is raising the shoulder point up and raising the underarm point up. So far you haven't changed the position of the shoulder seam. But if your shoulder is forward by 1 inch, then you need to take that sleeve cap notch and also move it forward by 1 inch as well. This is from Maureen Hopper. How do I make my sleeve match a more scooped arm side due to narrow shoulders and a full bust? Oh, that's a really good question, Maureen. And I think what I'll do is stand back up to answer that. So on the, I don't have my bodice front pattern up here, but when you've had to, maybe I'll go over to this pattern and just kind of draw this. Let me do this in red. What am I doing here? I'm drawing a neckline, a shoulder. We've scooped it for the armhole, and then there's our bust fitting dart like that. So now we've got our scooped in armhole, and this seam needs to walk in here. And keep in mind that we're going to do our best to do this. So take your sleeve pattern and take your underarm point and match it to the underarm point here. And remember, you're going to have drawn this in tracing vellum, so you're going to be able to see one layer through the other, and then walk this curve along this curve and up to this point. And again, once you've walked them together, you should be able to see how much sleeve cap ease you've got there. But as you're walking these two curves together, you may need to change the shaping on this as well. They should have a fairly consistent shape so that they sew together well here. It doesn't have to be identical, but you may need to do some reshaping on that underarm curvature of the seam, the sleeve seam as well. This question, I believe, is from a lady in Germany, Uti. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, I'm sorry. When I remove the elbow dart, another dart opens up from the wrist upward. Do I fill this new space with fabric or do I sew it up like a dart? Uti, if you remember back to the demonstration that I did here, I filled it in with paper, so this becomes all one right here. So it's not really a dart at all. Melissa Smith says, hi everyone, I've tried cutting a sleeve on the bias and it has worked well for me to give more movement in the armhole. Glenda, can you give us your knowledge on this? Well, that's a good point that you brought up. I'm trying to think if I've ever cut any sleeves on the bias. And as I take a look over on my rack over there, I don't think that I actually have. Typically, if I'm cutting something on the bias, it's usually for like a cowl neck. But I don't see why you couldn't try it and do it. I'm sure that it is definitely going to give more shape and more comfort room when you're moving your arm in that sleeve. The thing I guess I would be a little bit wary of is if the bias has a lot of drape to it, you might end up creating other problems. So I don't know, I'd have to play with that, and it just depends how stretchy that fabric is. So you know what, everybody? I think I am to the end of the chat questions. And if I missed anybody, please excuse me and send your question directly to your distributor. And I'd like to close today by giving you a couple of reminders. Number one is make sure to stay around for a few more minutes and watch my cheater's way to remove some sleeve cappies. It's really kind of fun way to do it, and it really works well. Number two is, if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please make sure you do, because that way when we do these free chats, then you should be getting notification of them. Make comments down in the comment section. We'd love to hear your feedback. And also, I want you to save the date for next month's live chat. It's Saturday, May 8th, and it will be at 11 o'clock in the morning here in Idaho. Same time all around the world as we were today. And that's the day before Mother's Day. So I haven't exactly decided on the topic yet. So we'll have to wait and see. If you have any suggestions, you are welcome to put them into the chat window where you can do that, but you can also email me your suggestions as well. And I'd like to thank you all so much for coming. Do remember that our free shipping and reduced shipping promo is once a year, and it happens to be this weekend, and it will be over at midnight tomorrow night. Again, I so sincerely appreciate all of you participating. It's your participation that keeps spurring me on to give you more. So thank you so much for staying with us today, and I hope to see you in May. Hello everyone, I'm Glenda with SureFit Designs, whimsically known as Glenda the Good Stitch. In this short video, I'm going to give you a really quick little tip on how to reduce the sleeve cap ease to make your job of setting a sleeve in a lot easier. It's just kind of a little cheater's technique. Doesn't have a lot to do with mathematics. It has to do a little bit with your skill and the fabric that you're using and the cap. But let's take a look at the actual factors that really can affect how well you get a sleeve sewn into an armhole. Sometimes when sewing in a sleeve into an armhole, you end up having puckers on the front of the cap or maybe on the back of the cap as well. Well, for some people that might be acceptable, but it isn't for me. I really like to have a nice smooth cap going in there. Now, part of the ability to set in a cap is experience. And I've been setting in sleeves for a heck of a long time. So it comes second nature to me what I do. And I always use exactly the same process, whether I'm working with a woven or a knit fabric, usually with a knit. Sometimes with knits you can just stretch them together. But where you're going to find the technique that I use is to go to the Sure-Fit Designs Learning Center, that's sfdlearningcenter.com, and go to the video library and look under SC for Sewing Construction, Steps and Techniques, and you'll see how to set a sleeve in. I know that there are lots of other ways to set a sleeve in, but it's what you get used to and what you're comfortable with, and of course, experience. So experience is definitely one of those factors that's going to affect how smoothly the sleeve goes in. Another factor that's going to affect how smoothly a sleeve sets into the armhole is the fabric you're using. In this sample right here, I am using a cotton poly. This is the cotton poly that's called Symphony Broadcloth from Joann Fabrics. It's 65 cotton, 35 poly. You can see it has absolutely no stretch to it whatsoever. I use this in my private retreats for all of our bodice testing, and it's because it doesn't stretch. But because it doesn't stretch means that it can be pretty difficult to get it to set in really nicely. And so I'm going to show you a quick little technique how we can get rid of some sleeve cap ease. But while I'm talking about fabrics, I'd like to also talk about the jacket that I have on display here. This is 100% polyester, and it is a woven fabric, and it's really, really loosely woven. It's what I call kind of wonky. But because it's kind of loosely woven and wonky, it meant that I could put my ease stitches in the sleeve cap, and then I could take that sleeve cap and mold it over top of like a tailor's ham, very similar to working with a wool when you're making a wool coat or jacket. And you can see that this sleeve looks beautiful when it's set in. There aren't any puckers or gathers, and when you're working with a sleeve pattern, you need the height on the cap to go up and over top of your shoulder bone. And you can see that that's happening here, and the sleeve set in beautifully, and the sleeve is hanging beautifully. And this sleeve and this sleeve have pretty much the same amount of ease in them. Now, let's talk about the pattern, because that's the third factor that can affect your success at getting a sleeve set into the armhole. And that's the amount of ease that the cap has. Now, again, I'm going to reference you to the Sure-Fit Designs Learning Center, and if you go to our article library, look for an article that's called Sleeves and All Their Quirkiness. When you take a look at that, I'm going to talk about the dimensions of the width of the sleeve, the height of the sleeve cap, how broad the sleeve cap is, and you're also going to see ease references given there as well. So what I talk about there is that the back of the sleeve cap should have a maximum of 5/8 of an inch of ease. Can be a little less, of course, depending on your fabric, but you typically don't want it a lot more than about 5/8 of an inch for a bell shape of cap like this. And again, one major exception is when you're working with a wool and you're doing something like a coat and you're putting in a header and that kind of thing, you might want to go up to about 3/4 of an inch of ease, but that's really pushing it to ease it in. On the front of the sleeve cap, from underarm up to the sleeve cap notch, you want a maximum of 1/2 an inch of ease. So anywhere from 3/8 to 1/2 is pretty good. And how you determine how much ease the sleeve has is, or the sleeve cap I should say, is simply by standing the tape measure on edge and walking the tape around the cap up to the sleeve cap notch. And you compare that to the underarm point on the back to the shoulder seam at the top. And then you subtract the difference between the armhole of the bodice and the sleeve cap. And when you get that difference, that tells you how much ease that cap has. Now, when we take a look at this bodice, and you can see that it's got these puckers and little tucks here. Again, because of my years of experience of sewing, I could have worked at this and I could have gotten that to look better. I couldn't have gotten it to look totally perfect, and it's because of the amount of ease that the front of the cap has. But I could have gotten it to look better, but I wanted to leave it like this so that you could see that this frequently happens. And when ladies send me their test garments and say, can you help out? Is there something I can do with the sleeve? Then I tell them about this little technique. And now after this video, I'll be able to show them how to do it. But yes, there is. We can remove a little bit of the ease in a very, very easy process. But again, had I worked on this, I could have gotten it to look a little bit better. But if you're a novice or even an intermediate seamstress, you might appreciate the technique that I am now going to show you. So without any dramatic mathematics or calculations or evaluations, all we're going to do is remove a little tuck on the back and the front of the sleeve cap. And how I'm going to determine where to put that tuck is I'm going to measure down from the shoulder seam, and I'm going to see that the majority of those little gathers that I don't like are about 2 to 2.5 inches down. So I'm just going to mark that distance on the cap of the sleeve pattern on the front and on the back, like that. Now what I need to do is make a little tuck going to nothing. So I need to fold the tracing vellum, and I'll just pick this up, make a tiny little pinch, and I'm going to give it a quick little fold like that. And I'm going to do, well, actually I'll finish this one, and then I'm just going to take this and make the tiniest little tuck, maybe 1/8 of an inch at the very most. And then I will take some of my, this is the removable tape that we sell. It's absolutely a must for doing any kind of pattern work because you can remove it if you need to. So I made a tiny little tuck there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to get a pinch in the tracing vellum, and then I will make a tiny little tuck right here. No more than about 1/8 of an inch is what I'm doing. Actually, I think this is a little bit narrower, about 3/16 of an inch. All right, now that got rid of some of the ease. Look what it did to the sleeve cap. It made this little bubble right on the top. And that's okay. I'm just going to mush it down like that. It's not going to affect too much me laying this pattern on the fabric. But what is really important here is that it did not change the width of the bicep. And this is so important for you ladies who have a large upper arm and you've done a large upper arm tune-up. You've made the whole pattern wider to accommodate the fullness of your bicep. And so many of you struggle with this. When you get the sleeve wider, it automatically makes the cap longer, and a longer cap equates to more ease. And of course, the more ease the cap has, the more difficult it is to sew into the arm side. So you can see what I've done here is I've removed excess ease. I've just let it bubble in the interior of the cap, but I haven't affected the bicep width. So that means that it's still going to fit over your larger upper arm. So it's really a great little, as I said, cheater's way to get and remove some of the cap ease without affecting the size of the sleeve. Now, I've done one other little process here that could work for you, could be helpful, and I'll just take this sample, this tracing vellum sample out. Here's a little short sleeve cap, and what I did was I slashed the pattern from the seam allowance to the centers, 2 diagonal slashes, and I kind of let the center just be a hinge point. And then what you can do is just overlap like this and tape down there, and there. So if you find cutting the pattern makes this easier to work with the cap, you can go ahead and do this. You're still going to end up with a little bit of bulge in the center, but it's just another way to get rid of some of that excess of ease. And if you have a little bit of a jog in the sleeve cap, just use your pencil and true that jog out, because it's not going to affect anything else. And let's take a look at the finished sleeve. And there it is. Can you see how much more beautifully and smoothly that is set in to this arm side? It looks absolutely great. For all intents and purposes, it's the same pattern as this one, except for I removed just a little bit of ease with my little cheater's technique. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you have, I invite you to join the Sherfa Designs community if you haven't already. And you can do that in 3 easy steps. Number 1, make sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Sherfit Designs. Secondly, make sure to join our newsletter list. And you can do that by going to sherfitdesigns.com and sign up for the newsletter list, and there are free gifts to get you started. And if you happen to be a Facebook fan, we do have a private group. Go to facebook.com/groups/Sherfit Designs. Request to join. Make sure you answer the 3 questions and I'll approve you. Thanks so much for watching.